right, we got it now. All right, good. Yeah, we'll need this. So now what I'm going to do is, let's see, let me go back one page here. This is what I put together for Edway. And by the way, this is just a few ideas on some future events if you want to go that way. Sound bites. First of all, I rewrote this from the ground up. Took me over 3 weeks of long hours, and it's all written in HTML code, just basic HTML. It takes it fills up a 32 gigabyte drive, and I can put this onto a thumb drive, but the only thing is now with the COVID, I can't get it to anybody. So if you come up with any ideas, let me know. All right. Okay, let's launch it this way. One of the first things I want to do is point out that if you go into any one of these packages here, this is what's available. Like on coming down here to FL prefixes, if you click on text, it tells you what to expect. Now there's pros and cons to this. What I have found is that if you tell people ahead of time what they're going to get into, they're not quite so paranoid on diving into it. So I suggest you go ahead and take a quick look at this. You can print it if you want, but I don't think you really need to. What I want to do is show you what's going to come up. I have all kinds of speeds here. Now, by the way, anything below 15 words a minute is 15 word per minute characters, but spaced out. So in other words, you got a 15 word a minute character, but they're presented, so it takes quite a bit of time between letter to letter to letter to make the whole word. And so this is the Farnstock method, which I was doing before it ever got called the Farnstock method, okay? Can you see my cursor? Okay.
Yes.
I would suggest that what you do here is start with 15 words a minute. Since we now have that solved, that's first timer for me. What I want to do is I want to point out that going to the text, notice that what I've done is I have done the FL as a prefix. I found a rather interesting thing. I found that if people concentrate on prefixes and suffixes, that solves half of the copy problem. And it's kind of a mental gymnastics, if you want to call it that. If you know it's going to be FL, you get to where you start hearing it rather than dots and dashes. In other words, you hear it as FL. And then suddenly we'd throw an EE in there. So we have FL given by itself. Then we have FL EE. Let's go take a look at it and see what we got. So now we come down here and we play the singles. Did you catch that? There was first of all, it was FL, and then FLEE, and then there was FLEET, and then there was FLEETING. Well, ing is another one of those things that we'll get into with suffixes. So let's do this. Let's back up here now. This particular one, notice what I've got here is called singles. In other words, the FL was given once, and then it was given with the word. Now, notice down here, the one down below this, play the text here. Notice what we've got here. FL is given 3 times. And then the word that is composed is given twice. So this is the nomenclature that I use here when I say a 3x2. Let's take a look at that one. And see, it started back over with the FLs again. What I found, a rather curious thing, is that because of the, I'll call it a mental confidence here, knowing that FL is going to be given, but you write it, you don't just listen to it, write it down. What you find is that by listening to it, you start thinking, oh, okay, I recognize that. And then what happens is they throw this other, or they being I in this case, throw this other letter in there, E. Oh, where'd that come from? Well, what happens is that when people are used to hearing this FL and they know what to expect, they're not so paranoid. And I found that one of the biggest obstructions that people have that are just starting off in Morse code or have run into some problems and they're trying to get back into it, they need a little bit of mental confidence, and this is a big help. So it gets you used to FL, and then tack on a couple of words. I'm open to questions as we go. Are you following me so far? There's a little bit of a mental agility here. Go ahead. Somebody had a question.
Oh, no, just making a comment. So far, so good.
All right. Of course, now there is one thing I want to mention, and that is that what I want to do is I want to mainly get across to you folks the methodologies that I have used over the years. Some of this actually I put a lot into 55 years ago, believe it or not, and I had a great deal of success with it. So, well, hopefully if we have trouble with the audio tonight, at least you'll be able to dive in and run this through the sessions yourself. All right, let's try it.
I don't know.
By the way, there was an ing in there, an ing. But what happens is, by the time we're through tonight, you'll get to where you'll hear ing as a complete tail. You don't hear it as three letters. You hear it as a complete composite. And that's one of the main things I have found so successful over the years is building composites. And these are the ones that you'll run into a lot. And ing, stop and think how many words you find in our ordinary conversations that are ing, like swing and bring and thing. And so anyhow, there's lots of those. And then every once in a while, inging. All right, let's try some more. Now, again, the prefixes is what I found really helped people a lot, because the repeats, they just seem to be helpful to have those in there, but especially knowing where you're going. So this whole area right in here is prefixes. Like I have single F prefixes, in other words, they're words that begin with F. Then there is a single L's that begin with just L, and you can see what they are. Notice what I do is I give the L 3 times, and then I give the word. And then I give the 3 times her L again, and then I give words twice. And by doing it this way, what I found is an amazing success over the years. Now, something else I need to explain that's not in this area here. I taught a course in Montana, and I had, I don't remember if it was 5 people or 6 people in class. None of them had Morse code in their background at all. They thought about it, but had not even practiced it. Only one person had struggled with Morse code at all. And here's what I did. First of all, this class was 3 hours a night, twice a week. On the very first night, what I did is I had a hand keyer on a table. And what I did is I spent the first 2 hours only sending certain letters. And I said, now listen to the personality of this letter. And I'm going to go into some of that tonight. What I did is for 2 hours, I sent all different kinds of letters. And I said, listen to the accents, listen to the balance or unbalanced, listen to that various different personality. And they kept asking, what letter is that? And I said, no, 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 don't worry about what letter it is. Just listen to what you hear. Now, here's the surprising part, and this is not an exaggeration. I swear by that. In the 3rd hour, I started telling them what some of the letters were. And by the way, I had been sending these at speeds from 15 to 25 words a minute. That's all I could handle. And if I went up to 30, I could get it right half of the time. At the other half, they say, okay, that's not what you meant to send. And that's correct. However, when we finished the 3rd hour, everybody in class could recognize at speeds up to 25, 30 words a minute, 4 letters and 3 combinations of sounds, both prefixes and suffixes. These people had never had Morse code at all. And by doing it this way, by getting them to listen to those personalities, they then knew and could recognize, it didn't matter whether it was 15 words a minute, 10 words a minute. Of course, I always sent 15 word per minute characters. It was amazing. They were dumbfounded that they could recognize even 2 or 3 combinations of sounds, ing and ese, ere. Then they could recognize th, they could recognize fl. So these in the very first night, and they could hear them at different speeds. And I made a point of changing speeds so they didn't get locked into one speed. And I think that's an important consideration. And by the way, that I'm not stretching the truth a bit. So this is a method that has worked over the years. Like an example, a period sounds like we're all done now. And if you listen to a comma, and if you listen to it with the personality, it says, oh, there's more to follow. The comma actually sounds like that if you think about it. And then there's the diddy dum dum diddy for question mark. There's also one more thing I have found. I'll get to that later tonight. Everyone that I have ever known, including myself, especially maybe myself, when a slash bar came around, it just threw me for a loop. It's like da did da did, and it was hard to pick that up when I was trying to read somebody's calls as a novice, and I was trying to talk to people all over. Okay, comments or questions before we go any further here?
You recommend, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. We might be asking the same question, Greg. Looking at I'll ask maybe what you were going to ask. Do you have a recommendation on where to start and the path through these, or do you just hunt and peck as?
No, actually, I'm going to recommend a path, but I'm going to kind of work through it. So
Gotcha.
I would say start with these guys here. Now you're going to get tripped up because they have tails on them that you're not familiar with unless you've already been learning the code. So what I would say is look at these guys here. Let me do, for instance, the TH prefixes. TH has a very definitive sound to it. Let's take a look at it. Now, first of all, look what I've got. TH 3 times and then a word twice. But then I go back to TH and then a word, but then notice I repeat the word twice in this particular series. Where it's a 3 by 2, it's twice. In other words, it's 3 times for the TH prefix and then 2 times for the word, okay? And by the way, what happens is if you don't know the letters, you start picking them up. I found the people listening to this, they say, oh, was that an E or was that a whatever? And they start picking it up even by working with this, even though they're concentrating on the TH run. Let's take a look and see what we got. Did you catch the ESE in there? All right. Now, to answer your question, Ed, I'm going to back out of this and we'll show you something. If you come back past the prefixes, you come down here also in this area for some of the suffixes right in here. And if you spend some time with some of the suffixes, as it turns out, a lot of these suffixes go with the prefixes. For instance, the ESE was one of them. Whoops, where to go here? Ings. Here we go. I'm up here in the E's. Let's take a look. Notice what we have is I have ESE spaced out. Then I have it closer together, and then finally I jam them together, and then I space them back out again. Let's take a look and see what that actually sounds like, okay? So we'll find the ESEs. And I'm going to do something here. I'm going to bump this up to 20 words a minute. The dit-da-dit-da-dit was end of message, AR. If you see it in print, you'll see it's the letter A and R compacted together, which is a legitimate Morse code character They call it, by the way, if you see it in print, it's AR with a bar over it, which means it's joined together as a da 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 dit. That's end of message. Then you have a da did it, which is a like what we got AS, for instance. That's end of message, or I should say wait. That's a wait signal. So what I've done is I've tacked those on as a follow-up. AR, end of, and then which is end of message, and then wait. Okay, let's back up again. I want to show you something else. Let's go back up to the ESE again. This time I'm going to run it up to 25. Oh, let's do 30. My point here is don't be afraid to run it at some of the higher speeds. It's really interesting how you can start saying, oh, I recognize the sound of that. It sounds very much like listening to it at a slower speed. In fact, after a while, if you've done that, after a while, it gets to where, why should I do it clear down here at 10 words a minute? Now, do you guys remember, it used to be, they talked about the 13 word per minute plateau. People would run into it at 13 words a minute. I can't get past that. And he said, because you've learned it wrong. I have, in my experience, in my teaching this, it does not exist. The 13 word per minute plateau does not exist if you listen to the individual sounds as personalities. And what happens is the slowest speed you'll ever work at is 10 words a minute, and there's no plateau. Every single person I worked with in the years past went sailing from 10 words a minute up to 18 words a minute before they began to slow down. So if you listen to this at, say, 18, here we go, let's try it. There was a comma in the middle. Did you catch the comma? Da, da, did, da, da. All right, now let's come down here to ings. Here's a whole bunch of words with ings. So what happens is you've got the word that starts and then the ing. And then you've got the double ings in there. It's not in this one, but in another one. Let's take a look and see what this thing sounds like. But I'll tell you what, maybe what we should do is back up and go to single ings with us. Oh, I can't do that one. This one here I haven't put in yet. Let's just do this one the way it is. 15. Let's go 18. How's that? Now, something I want to point out, and Ed, this kind of fits into what you were asking. let's say that you're working at this and you say, wait a minute, I missed those first letters. Don't get upset about it. Just go on. What you're listening for is the ing. Get to where you hear the ing. When they're teaching this in the military, but I was never there for that, but I've heard tell, what they did is they said, if you don't know the letter, put a dash, well, or an underline or a space or something, a check mark, something. And I agree that what you might do is, if you don't know what the letter is, don't stumble over it. Don't sit there and think about it. And that's the worst thing you can do. In fact, this is going to sound a little bit outrageous, but I guarantee it works. If you put down a letter, let's say your instinct says, oh, that might have been a Y. What happens if it wasn't? And people say, well, I don't want to get myself trained to thinking it was a Y when it wasn't. You won't. What'll happen is, as your code gets better, you automatically will put in the correct letter. Don't worry about, shall we say, building a bad habit of putting the wrong letter. You will correct it. I guarantee you will correct it. It sounds outrageous, but I have found that to be true over many years. People say, yeah, it really does work that way. It is self-correcting. Don't worry about it. The worst thing you can do is sit there and mull about it. Okay, that's the worst thing you can do, is mull about it. Now, I've got something else to show you here. Let's go back. One of the things I found is that when people mull about the letter, when code is coming in and they get run over, I want you to see something here. This is all dits, nothing but dits, this whole series. I did this, 50 years ago, and I found it really works. Now what happens is, notice there's 5 E's. Then E, I, S, H, and 5, and E, I, S, oh, now the 5's mixed in there, and then the H and S and E. At 13 words a minute, or close to 15, this is a 1-minute run. Then the next one is given 4 times, and that would be about a 1-minute run, actually a little bit less now. Then it's given 3 times, and then it's only given 2 times, and then finally it's given just once, but spaced out. Now here's what I did. When you play this at 15 words a minute, the philosophy is you listen, but you only write it once. In other words, there's 5 E's. You say, oh yeah, that was an E, so you write an E. You only write it when it changes. You only write it down when it changes. Now I'll tell you what the mental philosophy is on this. There's a little bit of mental dynamics that comes into play here. While this E is coming in, you'll feel like you're getting run over, but you're only writing it once when it changes. So you'll hear it as E, just sit there and write it comfortably as E, then I, and then S, and H, and 5. Now you know that's what it's going to be, but from there on it mixes. It's in different order. Let's see what this sounds like, because there's a tendency for it to just run over you. At 15 words a minute, here we go. Now, one of the things that helps here is that when a person knows these are only dits, it's only going to be E, I, S, H, or 5. That's it. So when you know that, that kind of narrows your frame of thinking, and you don't have to worry or ponder about, was that a Q, or was that an H, or was that a whatever, you see. You know you can focus on just E, I, S, H, 5, and there's not going to be anything else in this series. Okay, let's back up here. Now, the same thing is true on T's, TMO0. So if you play it this way, TMO0, you know there's going to be just the dashes, whatever letters that represents. So, Andy, by the way, the TMO0 is a hint. That's the first sequence, TMO0. Here we go. Okay, do you see the philosophy here? What I found is that a lot of beginners really feel they want to have time to think that letter over, and that's a terrible mistake. So what I did is I put this program together to just simply run over them. So it's like a steamroller nipping at their heels, and they get used to it. And then suddenly they find they're not so overwhelmed when they copy code from somewhere else. Now, here's another thing. Let's say you're listening to somebody over the, like say 40 meters, and they got a really good, strong signal and a good, clean code. And you say, yeah, but those guys are just traveling way too fast for me. Take time, listen to them, and try to pick out a letter. Don't worry about any other letters you don't get. Say, okay, I'm going to listen for an S, did it. Listen for a letter. And you know what's interesting? You'll be sitting there concentrating, waiting for this letter to come along, and you say, oh, that was a T. Oh, that was an H. Okay, here's a Y, but I'm listening for an S. See what I'm saying? Listen for a letter, and you'll find that you'll pick up more than you expected. So don't give up on somebody that's faster. Find somebody that's got good, clean code and just listen, and you'd be amazed what you can pick out if you do it this way. So you don't feel like you're being run over, and listen for it. And it works, it really does. All right, comments or questions? You see my psychology here as we go? There's a whole series of methods in this. So it isn't just one method, there's a whole series of them.
This is really great. Thanks, Dave. I really just what I was hoping for. As far as the Zoom processing of the sound, it's still kind of messing it up, but I don't think it really matters for what we're doing tonight.
Okay.
Just to let you know, especially on the O's and the zeros, give it enough time, it finds a way to like notch it out. It's really interesting.
Yeah. Well, I think also the good thing is if I could point out some things, then you guys can go on and get it directly off the net. And of course, this is all available and it's all free. If there was some way I could get it to you guys, I'd be glad to do so. Like I say, it fills up a 32 gigabyte drive.
If you just go to the website here, that's what I've been listening to. Sound quality is good. It works just fine.
Okay. All righty. Okay, now let's do something else. C, the letter C. By the way, this is single letters. I go through the alphabet here. C is the most swingingest letter in the alphabet. Da, 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 da. Okay, let's take a look at that just for real quick. Oh, and then by the way, of course, you've got various different words beginning with C. My philosophy, by the way, is if a person knows what the word is beginning with, it kind of stems the paranoid aspect because you know what to expect on the first letter. Of course, then the second or third letter might throw you, but that's okay. You just have to get used to that. All right. Well, let's go take a look and see what this sounds like in the real world. Okay. There's C. Let's take a look here. My favorite, 15 words a minute. All right, let's go back because I want to show you something else now. Back up the screen. Here's something else. And this also, by the way, is a little bit of an answer to your question there, Ed. Up in here, these are all dits in one group, DAWs in one group. And here is what I call balanced sounds. RKPX. One of the things I used to do when I was teaching was to say, I want you to listen how this character starts and ends the same. So let's see what we got. You got RKPX, and it goes again, RKPX. These are the 4 balanced sounds in the code alphabet. Then you have unbalanced sounds. And this is what I was doing when I was teaching what I call the personalities of the letters. I said, listen to the personality. Let's see what we got with our balanced sounds here, or RKPX. Let's do that the way it is. Here we go. By the way, one of the things I used to teach in class, I advocate script, not block. In military, they have you print block because then that way everybody can read it. However, block printing is herky-jerky. And if you do script and do it, it is very smooth and you can copy about 20% faster in script than you can block, literally. One of the things I used to do, like I did this at Tacoma when I gave a talk there, I went up to the whiteboard and I just took script and I wrote something out. And when I wrote it out, I turned around and said, okay, how fast was that in words per minute? Well, they weren't even expecting that. And I said, okay, that was 20 words a minute. I just casually wrote it. What happens is people somehow think that 20 words a minute is horribly fast when they're first starting. And I'm saying, no, actually 15 is a good, comfortable speed, but it's almost too slow. That is, once you're running on it, you get down to where it's really slow. You want to, oh, I'm going to go to sleep in this process. But for a beginner, 15 words a minute seems horribly fast until after a while it says, hey, there's not much difference between 18 and 15. And there's not much difference between 15 and 20. I have trouble sending 30 words a minute. All right, let's go back. Now, this RKPX was in the series of where everything is repeated 5 times, 3 times, 4 times, until finally you're all done and squeezed together one pass. Let's go back and look at another one. In the balanced sounds here, let's take a look at the text here. Here you only have just a few. All right, let's go back and look at another one. In the balanced sounds, what you might have is, oh, wait a minute, let me back up and do an unbalanced. What do you mean unbalanced? The letter A, when you hear it, sounds like somebody stubbed their toe and is going to fall flat and break their nose. Think about it. Da-da. However, dawed it. Oh, they got their balance and they're back up on their feet again. So those are both unbalanced and they sound unbalanced if you think about it that way. Let's take a look and see. 15 words a minute. Here we go. Okay, now something else that I did in here, besides having balanced and unbalanced, I have abbreviations like you would commonly use if you're in a QSO with somebody. Let's take a look and see what they look like. Guess where the teenagers got their texting from on the phones. Ham radio had it first. GG is going. By the way, what is ES in ham radio? Anybody? In Morse code. What is it? I mean, what's it used for?
And?
And, yeah, and. Where did that come from? It came from the old guys with the side swipers, the bug. It was easier to flip the paddles and get ES. And they didn't have to spell out and, it was already given. There was ES as and. That's all there is to it. So they actually were taking shortcuts a long time ago. And TU, of course, is thank you, or so is TX, actually TNX. TX is transmit. So anyhow, why did I have these in here? Well, because if you want to practice getting these guys, I've got them in the machine right here. So you can take a look and run them as abbreviations. They're in there. Let's take a look at, let's do 3-letter contrasts. What do I mean by 3-letter contrasts? Like all dits, cis, S-I-S, all dits, S-H-E, all dits, H-I-T, oh, now we got a da. These are 3-letter contrasts is what these are. Tax, okay? So you can do all those. All right, what I did is I mixed a whole bunch of different combinations, including down here somewhere, I have difficult words or difficult combinations.
Dave, when you can take a question.
Yes. Go ahead.
On your page there, you've got some phrases that are crossed out. What's the context there?
Oh, I haven't gotten them in yet. They're grayed out because I don't have them filled in yet.
Oh, okay. So they're little to-dos.
Yeah, this is accented by daws, accented by dits. They're there so I can fill them in later, but I didn't want to leave just an empty slot, is what it was. By the time I got through with what I've got here as a complete rewrite, I was adding stuff as well. And to be honest, I got tired. I was spending 10, 11 hours a day, 6 days a week for 3 solid weeks redoing all this. Because each sound, in other words, here I've got this particular text, but I had to take this text and play it into sound bites for 8 different speeds. So what happened is I had to take the text and run it through a text to CW converter 8 different times just for that one spot. So after a while, I got tired.
Sounds like an opportunity for some automation there.
Yeah, in fact, I'm working on it right now.
Question.
Yes, sir.
So as I've been doing this, I try not to frustrate myself by trying to write it down or do script. In practicing, should we do both? In other words, listen to it at different speeds and use script to copy?
Yes, but can I also jump track here, and I'll show you something else that comes into play here as well. I advocate script entirely. Granted, whenever I write a memo, I always print, but I cannot, I've indoctrinated myself so hard that I cannot do Morse code in anything but script. I can't force myself to do it. Now, question for everybody. Have you ever heard an old timer, now I are one, say, you need to learn to copy behind? You ever heard that?
From you.
Yeah, and then you ask them, well, how? Well, you just need to learn how to do it. I got frustrated because I talked to a lot of old timers when I was a youngin', and nobody could tell me how to do it, except, well, you just learn to do it. Now, I'm going to show you something. I came up with a method that works. And I'm going to jump track and show you this. And this is going to go in, by the way, with your code and writing in script. Here's the problem. First of all, the problem people have is they try to learn how to copy behind while they're still learning Morse code. That's a double whammy. They're struggling with code and they're trying to learn how to copy behind. Here's how you avoid that. You need one of two things. You either need to have someone to help you or a tape recorder. And here we go. Come down here to the bottom. Down here, take this and copy it or print it out. Here we go. Here's what you do. There's two different exercises. And by the way, I guarantee these work. One, take a newspaper or a magazine and read into the tape recorder 1 letter per second. So like, for instance, if you have a newspaper or taking an article here and you say G, E, T, T, I, N, G. Quotes, R, U, N, dash, O, V, E, R, quotes. Notice what I did in between. I paused. In other words, I'm just like a metronome, metronome, metronome. And by the way, when you get to things like quotes, you don't say quote marks. That's 2 words. You only use 1 word. Question mark is question. Do not say question mark. Then here's what you do. With your pencil and paper, there's a rule. You start with your pen or pencil on the paper. Do not have it in the air to push down. The very fact of the motion of going from the air down to the paper constitutes the loss of a letter. And here's what you do. This is a mental exercise and you're not using Morse code. And this works. What you do, looking at the list here, there's a 3-letter list that you put on the page, or you're using the newspaper with your pen on the paper. The first letter comes in, and the first letter was, let's see, what was it? Let's say G. Impulsively, you want to write the G real quick. That's a mistake. What you do is nice and easy. You tell it's like your mind telling your hand, don't write yet. Hold on. And then the next letter comes in, E. Then you start carefully writing the G. If your pen stops in the middle of a word, you're writing too fast. Write slow, painfully slow. And we're writing only 1 letter per second. And don't cross T's or dot I's until you get to the space between words. Then with pen on the paper and you hear the first letter, resist that impulse to write it real quick. Hold off until the second letter. So what you're doing is you're writing 1 letter behind. It's amazing. It works. It really does work. And you do that with a newspaper or anything else, tape recorder, as they say, or have somebody read to you 1 letter per second. What you're doing is you're training yourself to write script in concert with what's coming in, but 1 letter behind. Then, now that you think you got that mastered, now let's go on to the next one. Do these 3-letter words in the tape recorder. 3-letter words. But what you do here is like the letters come in, A, and your pen is on the paper, S, K, but not until the next word comes in do you write ASK in synchronism with the letters ASP. And when you first start working at this, you'll have fits. I guarantee you'll have fits. And but I've had people come back and say, it took me an hour to get a hold of this, but I got to where I could actually do it 3 letters behind consistently, but it takes practice, okay? It really does work, but you have to work at it. And then what you do is you start going faster, like maybe 2 letters a second instead of only 1 letter a second. But you can sit there and write script, like I said, and you can train yourself to write 3 letters behind of the text that's given. The biggest thing is you do it this way separately. You're not struggling with Morse code. What you're doing is you're training yourself to copy 3 letters behind. And then lo and behold, the first time you start trying it with Morse code, you'll find, hey, this really works. It really does. All right, try it. I think you'll be amazed. But I can also tell you that the first night you try this, you're going to get twisted in your mind here a little bit. You're going to say, why am I doing this? But it works. It really does work. Okay. Yeah, I had students come back and they say, we tried that. The first night I thought I was going to go bonkers, but then I got to where I could do it. And you know what? It's not bad. I can do it now. Now,
actually might be really good for pilots as well to copy ATC instructions and whatnot too.
Oh yeah. In fact, it helps you even if you're in class and taking notes.
Yeah.
Now, something else I found when I finally got and applied this to Morse code after working with this, I found that when a prefix come in like ing, and you know, I drop my pencil, I pick it up, I can write the ing because I heard it and I write ing. So you just follow it right in there. So it really does work once you get back to the Morse code. All right, try it, you'll be surprised. Okay, now I have also here, if you wish, I have some code runs. I have weather, I have chuckles, I have quotes, I have QSOs in here as well. I've got Q calls. Why do I have that? Because people have trouble with Q calls. And so I have them in here for practice. So you can do them like here, Q calls as an example, QSL twice, QRP twice, QTH twice, QSO twice. But notice that the letters are at full speed, but with spacing between them, okay? So this means you hear it as almost like a burst. In fact, I'm going to show you something here. The one we were just looking at was Q calls and with the spacing. Let's see what this looks like at 20 words a minute. You see, now that's not bad at all at 20 words a minute, is it? Now I can take here, like for instance, Q calls SPSL. Let's take a look and see what that is. Notice it is a slight space between them. And notice what's in here, a slash bar. So now you can catch the QSL with a slash bar. Oh, and then guess what? A comma. So in here, you got slash bars and commas mixed in. So you have some additional practice to go in there to try to figure things out. All right. Let's say, well, let's see what that sounds like at 20 words a minute. You see what I'm doing? I'm mixing in some other characters. I give the same thing twice and go from there. I see we're starting to run out of time, but notice, if you will, I do have QSOs in here. And again, one of the things I recommend, don't do any of these until later. So in answer to your question, Ed, I don't start in this area here because these are given to practice to see how you're coming. And if you do it at anything slower than 15 words a minute, it's still 15, but spaced out accordingly. Okay, they're all spaced out. I recommend that you do these guys, ings, and also the FL. I got contrast in here, but look at this, ESE. ESE is the old knock knock, you know, dot, 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 dot. You know, you've heard that many times. Or the knock where somebody knocks on your door. Dot, 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 dot. That's ESE. How about HI? That's a good one. Then we can get into ERE. Let's see what EREs look like. Notice they're spaced out, then they come closer together, then finally full tilt and then spaced back out again. I do this because I want people to have the flexibility while they're learning all this. So let's take a look and see what it actually is sounding like. Here we go, at 15 words a minute. I've got word pairs and short groups. I've got punctuation. All I'm saying is, for everybody, take a quick look at the text. And after you take a quick look at the text, like word pairs here, cut and run, hammer and sickle, things like that, then go ahead and play it. And then just listen to it. So I see we're run out of time, but at least I've had a chance to show some of the methodologies. And of course, you're going to need to hear it better than what is coming over on the sounds.
Yeah,
So
it's
at the end of
improve that,
Dave, at the end of some of those, you've got the plus and the exclamation point. Is that are those played on your audio?
let me see, where are you talking about?
So on some of the text in the text, some of them end with a plus
okay,
sign.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, here just a second. These characters here is what it took, like the plus sign is what it took in a particular code player to make the AR composite. So it was not really sending a plus. What happened is this particular program that took the text and converted it to sound, I found that they had to use this plus sign as an AR composite.
Interesting.
Then the exclamation mark was an AS. So there's no bearing, no relationship other than what it took in the code process.
So when we're looking at the text, if we see a plus and a bang, we know that that's a AR and AS.
Yeah, yeah. But you will not, of course, see this. And when it's playing, what you'll hear is the did-ah-did-ah-dit, which is AR. And then you'll hear the did-ah-did-it, which is AS. But it doesn't look like an AR or AS. I've thought about if I write my own program, I would make it to where AR could be like with a bar over it. And then my code, my programming code would recognize it as a composite. So unfortunately, the program I was using did not have that option. So I'm writing some new code now to make some of these things a little bit more automatic.
Nice. Well, thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
We should get any questions and answers out of the way before we wrap it
Yeah.
up.
Well, I think it mainly did give me a chance to at least show you some of the things, but you have to go through it. There's a lot of stuff in here. And I've got individual letters. However, if you take a letter like R, they start with R, but they're words. So when you look at this single alphabetic prefix, it is only that first letter that's the prefix. It's a prefix for a whole word, and there's a string of words. So I tried to come up with that.
Hey, Greg.
Yes.
From now on, I want you to only talk to me in das and dits.
Okay. I better get my keyer set up then.
Yeah. Okay.
I got quite a bit out of that, Dave. Thank you.
I did too.
Yeah, right. Well,
No, that was perfect because I looked at, like Greg, I looked at this and played things without knowing why they were the way they were. You put a lot of thought into this, Dave. It's really amazing.
Well, if you'll think about it, there's a lot of different methods. There's probably about 6 or 8 different methods that I have employed over the years. And can it be improved? Oh yeah, can always be improved. But here's some chuckles. Here's something you might be interested in as an example. Guaranteed, airtight system with manufacturer's guarantee not to leak, but the repair kit is included. So what I'm getting at is I have a whole series of chuckles. Now, when I was a novice, there was a gentleman that was using chuckles every code day. And what he would do is he would take a chuckle and play it about 25 words a minute and see if we could, how much we could copy. Then he would send it again at 18 and then at 15 and then at 13. And, you know, finally, when he got down to my speed, I could catch what he was saying, right? So this is also what I recommend. I recommend that when you feel pretty confident, start up here. Like, for instance, half full, or let's go human error. Go up here at 25 words a minute and then work down. Let's see what it sounds like at 25, and I'll just do this. Then what you do is you turn around, you say the same thing at slower speeds. So work your way down. The one here, middle age with an SP and human error with an SP as compared with over here. SP means it's spaced out more. So you get the letters are fast, but then they're spaced out. So you get used to hearing high-speed letters. And then lo and behold, you got spaces between them. It says, oh, well, that's not bad at all. I think I got that. Now here I thought I was restricted to 13 words a minute, and here's a 20 word per minute character. And I heard it, I understood it. There you go. So anyhow, a lot of work in here, but hopefully, like I said, I'm open for what I want to say. It can always get better. And by the way, this is all free. I designed it as a teaching tool. It is a series of tools in the toolbox. How's that? That's the way I did it. I did it as a teaching tool. And feel free to use it in helping someone else learn code.